Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. As a preliminary matter, this is Rob Benchley. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons participating on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Caroline Ellis. Caroline, I see you there. You're muted.
Hi.
There we go. Thank you. Mary Lathrop Will. I see her there. She's muted too. Can't hear you. Angus McLeod.
Here.
Oh, there we go. There's Mary. Clement. Clement.
Oh,
Clement,
I'm
are you
here.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir. Here. Sorry. Looking out the window as usual.
Good morning. This is the open meeting of the Sconset Advisory Board. It's being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gathering, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the opening law to have all meetings publicly accessible. Physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. This access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting may or may not feature public comment. For this meeting, that Sconset Advisor is convening video conference Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured in the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided by members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Now turning to the first item in the agenda, before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line inviting my name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields to the floor to you and you state your name before. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. In the event that we have public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. And the last bullet item, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And with that, I will turn our meeting over to our agenda. I call this meeting to order. And we've gone through the members present. And I may get a voice vote for the adoption of the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
good enough. Uh, We're going to jump on to item number 3, new business. And this would be the summer house, Danielle Benedictus at 1 Magnolia Avenue. I believe they want to put up some dormers the way they had been back when the building was originally built. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner of what Holly's got on the screen, photographs of what was the Sconset Supper Club, I think? No, it was the old Sconset Inn. Yeah, the old Sconset Inn, which became Moby Dick, and you can see the Moby Dick fire in the upper right, part of the same property. Okay. I've noticed that they, and we probably all noticed it, after the recent fire last summer, they're putting a whole new roof on and pretty much finished on the back. And I guess this application, correct me if I'm inaccurate, is that they would like to put it back the way they originally was.
That is my understanding.
Yeah. It's interesting to go by there today. You can see shingling on east-facing roof plane where they had taken the dormers because the shingles they replaced it with were much newer and different. So I guess they want to expand their employee. I don't know that for a fact, but whatever they're doing, they're bringing the building up to code. It's got to be a massive project. I'd say it's very good for the building because it needs a lot of work.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, please. Please do.
I personally think it's wonderful that they're going to rebuild the dormers that existed in the original building. I was a little surprised to see after they had shingled the roof without the dormers, they then took them off and opened up the roof. And they are in the process of building those dormers as we speak. At least they were last week. So
Okay.
I think that this is a timely application, but it might actually even be an as-built. Just saying.
Yes.
I can say that this application is on the HDC's agenda for this evening. So yeah, I think you're correct, Mary.
Okay.
My concern is that as much as we're talking about the old dormers going back, if you look at the photographs, the smaller flanking dormers are centered on the roof, not at the very top of the roof. And I think that is more fitting. I think it works better proportionally.
Agreed.
And the center dormer is higher in the original.
Right.
And much larger. The original, that center dormer to me is too big. So I appreciate they're lowering the size of the center dormer.
I agree.
Diminishing price.
I agree with that.
Yes.
But I can confirm Mary is right. They have already started building these dormers.
So it's not really an as-built, it's a being built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looks good. So
I think we have one of the abutters who is on the call. Do we open it for his comment?
I think that's appropriate. Holly, can we?
Yep, absolutely.
The chair recognized Tom Laughlin when he would care to speak.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the advisory board. I actually was just tuning in to learn what this was about because we received a note. As an abutter, we received a notice. the application. So, and I don't know exactly what's in the purview of what it is that you're asking about this. We're just curious about what the project was, frankly, how the property is meant to be used. And so mostly here just to listen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Laughlin. Yeah, this application doesn't speak to the use, but I believe it's purely just the design itself. As you know, there are rumors flying all over Sconset about what's going to happen there. Happily for us, we're not Court of Appeals. So,
Okay. Well, thank you. Like I said, this is just for my own education. You know, as the next door neighbor here, wanted to understand the project. I mean, the dormers aren't. We're not troubled by the dormers themselves.
great. Thank you for contributing, and you may stay along and see how it goes if you like.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Chair, so it sounds like, I'm gonna see if I can annotate. I can, hold on one second. Okay, so you're wanting to recommend that these move down off the ridge?
I think that was the suggestion of Angus MacLeod. Do you think that's?
So in general, you know, we always try to keep the roof line of the dormers down from the ridge, and all of these are hard up to the ridge. And I don't think it's necessary, but aesthetically, I don't think it's as pleasing, and it's not what was there in the 20s.
Right. So we go back to the
Okay,
photo.
all right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
And because they are
So-
making that large one smaller, I get that, and I think that's fine. But that's why that one is like almost a flush dormer with just the eave line going underneath it, whereas the other ones are set back a little bit.
Mhm.
Yes.
Maybe all of them could be set back more like the old flanking dormers.
Well, do you notice that the second floor has windows, and in the new picture, I believe it does not. See how the roof comes
Right.
all the way down?
Yeah,
So-
those ooh,
Yeah, they extended the front roof east and obliterated the second floor windows with the extension of the roof, and I'm assuming the dining rooms underneath. So the building has expanded eastward a fair amount since that original picture showing second floor windows was taken.
and
The roof
those
windows.
those windows are there. They just can't be seen because the roof line came down,
Yes.
turning it into a port.
Oh, you
So
can
those-
see under those windows are underneath the porch roof?
Yes, yes.
Ah, okay. I'd forgotten that.
The only reason I know that is I lived there for 4 summers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to Angus is, if they bring the dormers for the proposed third floor dormers, if they bring them down, do they bring them then below the third floor plane? I mean,
right.
it looks to me, given where the top step is on the stairs, on the south side of the elevation, see where that comes in, kind of just below the middle dormer. I mean, it looks to me as if the middle dormer comes right down to the floor. So those are going to be rather low windows, which I would assume would then have an effect on the code. In other words, you can't have a window on the floor by code, can you?
You can, it just has to be tempered glass once it's below a certain height.
I see.
But I mean, you have a good point as far as function. But it feels top heavy to me. And
Mhm.
you know, in the old pictures, there wasn't that long slope that has that creates that wonderful porch that's there now.
Yeah.
So I think you have to, like, you can't sort of pick and choose what you're going to take from the 20s.
Right.
So back then, it was a two-story eave, and the dormers were balanced. If you look at that lower elevation that has the gable end view from the south, you can see where the dormers are in relation to the old two-story eave, and where
Yes.
the porch is. So that made more sense when it was a two-story eave. But
Yeah.
um, I mean, my project isn't to redesign it, but it feels it doesn't, with the extension of the roof the way it is now, the dormers feel like they're too high on the roof. So whether they, you know, modify it so that they're shed dormers maybe that help bring down the eave line, you know what I mean?
And then
Uh,
have the dormers a couple of feet off the ridge line.
Preferably, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe bring them down, you know? They don't have to have window heads at 6'8", which is typical. But, you know, in Sconset, there's some windows that are just low, you know, they start off at 4 feet or something, but.
And if we look at that north elevation, Holly, can you just scroll back down a little
Yep.
bit? Okay. Or even the south elevation, it doesn't matter. It looks like there's an existing dormer on the west side.
There is over the kitchen.
Yeah. So are they just matching up the ridge lines with the existing dormer on the west side? Yeah.
Looks like.
If you keep, yeah, that looks like what's there on that west elevation.
Yeah, I mean, they're two different elevations. One has that first, you know, 1-story eave, and the other one has a 2-story eave. On the north side, or rather the west side, on the back, it's, you know, it looks, those
Right.
dormers aren't the prettiest, but they look better on a roof that starts on the second floor.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I really do feel like it's awkward, but I think there's a way to still have a dormer, but have it work better. And that would be to have a shed dormer instead of a gable.
So it troubles me a little bit, and I had not realized this until we began discussing it, but this is rather a disingenuous application. It says, oh yeah, we're going back to doing exactly what they did in the 20s, but they aren't. And they've
Right.
already started it.
Yeah. This is Rob here. I guess my introduction led us to believe this was exactly what they were doing, and now that we've gotten this far,
I didn't realize it wasn't until we really began taking a closer look, and it was Angus's good point that the dormers look a little odd because, well, you didn't have the porch extending eastward in the 20s. So,
right.
yeah, looking at these original pictures, it's all great, but that's not, again, disingenuous. The application is not to reclaim what we saw in the 20s, although it indicates that. Misleading.
So are we of a mind that we, in any event, we'd like to, maybe those gable dormers on the east elevation, the smaller ones could be a shed roof rather than a gable? Would that help?
I think that helps. I think pulling them down the roof as much as is practical would help as well.
Yeah,
I mean, if a bed is going to go underneath the window, you know, a bed's 2 feet high and the window doesn't have to be huge. Like they could have a window that's 5 feet high and it would still be practical. They could still look out at the water from their bed. I don't know what they're doing with that space up there. I haven't really looked at the floor plans, but I think there's a way to have light and a view and all that, but have it look a little bit more balanced on that. It's such a huge roof plane.
yeah.
And it feels really, really pinched up to the top.
Third floor roof or floor plan.
Yeah. Thanks, Holly.
Mhm.
Yeah, looking at the floor plan, it's hard to make out what that really is. It's like just light for the hall.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Hmm.
What is the,
there aren't
that's,
there aren't even doors to the dormers, so it's not like they're rooms.
yeah. Right.
Maybe a couple of social gathering spaces, but that's about it.
So no changes to the first and second floor. Any
Caroline,
concerns
what
on
you thought?
It looks more like storage than anything else, but you never know. Yeah,
But they're all, so they're all flush, I guess, in the front. The middle dormer, I don't see the line that goes on the roof. Yeah, is that the end of it? So they're all flush with each other. I mean, they're equidistant out to the roof.
oh, I
No.
think those are dimension lines.
dimension lines? Yeah, so
Exactly.
the two flanking are the same length, but the middle one is not.
Mhm.
Almost looks like double the size. Is that what it looks like? Just about.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't have a scale with me.
so if the added porch roof on the east side was not there, it would be a flush dormer on the center gable dormer lining up with the walls below it, I'm guessing. Kind of looks that way, or maybe it's back a little bit.
Just a smidge. A foot.
Oh, yeah. Yep, yeah, you're right. There it is. Thank you. I don't know.
I guess it's hard to discern what was redone due to the fire and what wasn't.
Correct.
There's a lot of hodgepodge of the windows.
yeah.
Yes.
You all would know more than I would out there, though. I haven't been out there in a while.
You can be assured that that Bob and Doug Wiley were not so attuned to the HDC. They pretty much did what they wanted there. So we would suggest bringing the dormers down a bit and possibly a shed on the two flanking.
Well, but
as
in the 20s, they were definitely peak dormer. You know, all three of them were the.
Yeah.
So if you just continued, I don't think we well, I might complain more if they took the roof back up and we could see those second floor windows. I don't really want to see those, so I like the big roof.
Yeah, I do too.
So I'm okay with it as it is, I guess. I'm not as, I don't know as much about architecture as Angus does, certainly so.
I do think if we went with shed dormers, the whole building would seem to be a little bit lower scape. So that might make it sink in nicely. It does sink into the trees anyway, but
Sure does.
They would actually gain more space if they brought the dormers, at least the flanking dormers, out another couple of feet, which means that they would drop 18 inches or whatever, and have the windows sitting on the roof rather than having that awkward shingle course between the roof and the windowsills. And then go with a shed roofs that would, come right down to the top of the windows and die into the roof a little bit lower. I think still achieve their goals of getting light and view, but they would actually gain a little bit more space inside, and it wouldn't feel so perched up top.
Good, well, let's recommend that then.
I would go with that.
I agree.
Well, right now they're flush on the top, but not on the bottom. So if they lowered the flanking dormers down a little bit, would they be flush on the bottom? Is that the recommendation, that they go all the way down to the same level as the middle dormer?
Yes, but you're changing the dormer from a gable to a shed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just
But in
the
the
two flanking
20s,
ones?
yeah, but in the 20s they were peaked, so
Yeah,
They
they were
were-
gable.
they
Excuse me.
were gable. They were not shed.
True, but you
They were-
also did,
Excuse me.
you didn't have the extension of the roof, which covers the
No,
second.
no.
Right.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that this comes all the way out to the point of where the larger dormer is, maybe halfway.
Okay.
So that they still, it's a nod to the past where they were a little bit set back. But yeah.
And Angus, were you thinking of 3 shed dormers, or the 2 flanking being shed dormers and keeping a gable dormer in the middle?
They could do shed flanking the gable. It would be great to see the gable windows come down too. I mean, that's a lot of shingle area underneath the windows. It'd be nice to see that come down.
Angus, into shed,
I beg your pardon?
into shed for the center one.
It could be, but you could also keep the gable and just lower the windows closer to the roof and then go with sheds flanking it.
Okay.
But then would you keep the backside still as gabled? So the front and the back wouldn't, the east and the west wouldn't match.
Yeah, so they're completely different faces now. If you look at them, one has that long sloping roof and the other is, clearly 3 stories, 2-story eave and
Yeah.
3-story dormers. And then there's the gable coming off the back for their kitchen, and there's a lot going on back there. The front is so beautifully simple. That was one of the beauties of that blank roof. And I don't think it's a bad thing to add the dormers. It's just, I think they're awkward as shown.
Well, the only thing I like about the dormers is that the 2 flanking ones line up with the 2 in the back. Not that you're never going to see them together, except as we're looking at it, but it makes kind of the same roof line.
You're right. You'd never see them together.
Really? Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
I mean, unless you have a drone that's up 25 feet or whatever. That's what's
No
unrealistic about elevations like this, is that you don't really ever have this perspective, but
Right.
you got to show
No
it somehow.
concerns on the windows in that center dormer? Besides lowering them?
So there were awnings in the old photos, and it's hard to tell, is that awning or is that a higher window in the middle?
Mm.
It's a higher window.
Does look it.
Does look
Mhm.
it, yeah.
Oh, and you've also got some of that interesting detail that it's almost Victorian, isn't it? Or it's very seaside.
Yeah.
The detail in the peak of the gable. Yeah, thank you. That's great. The pointer is showing us. It is very 1920s. It's cool. In terms of windows, the only ones I really have a problem with are the old louver windows on the front of the building, but that's not what's in question, so I'm just being a pain in the neck mentioning it.
I like it as far as the fixed.
Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm just complaining about my computer here.
So what do you all think about moving the dormer faces of the flanking halfway towards the face of the middle one, lowering the middle windows half of what is the shingle exposure now? And maybe the peak comes down with it, who knows? But have the flanking dormer windows be on the roof and the roof on the windows.
Yeah, what I would like is the flanking ones to come down a little bit, like halfway, like you said, Angus. And then that would take the gabled peak off the roof line
Mhm.
and would break it up a little bit better. And then you could lower the windows on the middle dormer, keep it where it sits, but the windows could be 6 inches lower, so they're not just jam up against the eave of the roof. Yeah,
Yep. All good.
that would be good to me. I don't want to switch from the gable to the shed just because I like to line everything up. So I like the gables, but I think you're right. It would make the roof look better if they were a little bit lowered, and then you would it'd break up the roof a little bit more. And wouldn't change the interior.
Speaking of lining things up, another simpler way to describe it is maybe moving the flanking dormers down so that all the dormer eaves are the same height.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a better way to put it. I don't think the bottoms should line up, but if the eaves lined up, yeah, that makes sense.
Does.
And that's about the right distance that you're talking about, isn't it? Like 18 inches or something. So I have no idea about the scale, but just that little bit would be good.
Like, can we see this back before something just flies? I mean, we don't really know what it's going to turn out like.
Yes, you can see it back, provided that the commission does not approve as is. If they ask for revisions, then yes, it would come back to you, or I would ask for it to come back.
You mean as built?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
hopefully we'll get more information on that this evening.
Yeah,
I was
there's definitely that aspect.
Yes. Yeah, there is that aspect to it all. That is this going to be the as-built, or are they literally in the middle? I mean, I don't know.
It's a
But all these
reminder why it's a bad idea to build before you permit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I think last time I saw, the roof is still open, so maybe they could shift things around a little bit to do this.
Structurally, the way those dormers would be supported is on the on the eave walls. So sliding it up or down shouldn't make it any, harder or easier to frame.
And there's another good reason we have Angus on board. He knows how that stuff works.
I'm learning how to annotate on these drawings. I've never done that before.
Good.
During the meeting. I wanted to go back to the floor plan. I think your suggestions really wouldn't hinder their proposed floor at all. So
No, it's just movement of windows and movement of the roof line, the eave.
right. And the plans were annotated that the center gable right here, dormer is proposed slightly smaller than the earlier one. So I guess referring to the 1920s photograph.
Mhm. Well, yeah, because they couldn't fit the original size ones in, given the fact that the eastward roof plane has been extended so.
Those awnings probably went to the dump.
Of course they did.
So quirky. I like it.
We could put them back in the house in Codfish Park. But that's a different application.
That time frame.
Yep.
Some places keep them, some places don't.
Yep.
Any other comments on it?
No, thanks.
I think we're good.
I think that's good. I think that's a good agreement.
Yeah.
You don't have any minutes yet, so last week's meeting, we'll get those to you.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll be seeing the Baxter Road thing
Yes.
next time. You're gonna, okay.
Yes.
And thank you for putting us all on the list from the various communications you've had. That's really helpful.
You're welcome. Trying to
Yeah.
do that. I want to say the Baxter Road one will be on for, this is new business, but it didn't make it this agenda. So I want to say it's going to be the HDC's the 21st meeting. So that means it'll be on your agenda for the 20th, that day before.
Okay, great.
And do we meet next week or not?
As basically we have them set up, yes. So it will be up to Kathy during this week to look to see what we have for applications, whether it's old coming back or new.
Okay.
But more than likely, I would say we'll have a
Okay.
meeting.
And what's the Baxter Road one you're talking about, Rob?
73, I think it's
Rosaline.
The
The
old,
demolition,
Oh, wait,
yeah,
demolition,
the
yep,
garage and.
That
Okay.
Sears and
Yeah.
Roebuck garage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brecker Derby, yeah.
Great.
Right.
All right. Is there anybody standing in the wings waiting to speak? Okay.
Doesn't look it.
All right, good. Well then, the chair will make a motion to accept and confirm the comments we've made on this particular application.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to entertain a voice vote on this, if I may. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair notes unanimous consent. And
You
there being
technically
no,
have to do a roll call.
I do. Okay, fine. I was trying to avoid that, but
Sorry.
all right then. That's all right. I'll start with Caroline. Caroline Ellis, how do you vote?
Yeah. Yes.
Chair notes a yes. Mary Lathrop will.
Yes,
All right. Angus McLeod.
Yes.
Clement Durkees.
Yes,
And the chair, Rob Benchley, says yes. Chair declares unanimous consent on our, okay, good. And I think the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, okay. Caroline Ellis?
Agreed. Yes.
Okay. Mary Lathrop will?
yes.
Angus McLeod?
Yes.
Clement Durkees?
yes.
Robert Benchley would like to stay on a little longer, but he'll say yes. All right then. Holly Backus, thank you again and again.
Thank
you
you,
1,000
Holly.
times.
You, Holly.
And
You're
thank you,
welcome.
thank you, everybody. We'll see you around the village.